and welcome to this video. I'm Ellen Cool, welcome to the Cool Library, and I am here in front of my library to talk to you about my favorite books that I read in 2021, more specifically the top 20 books. I was going to do 10 because that's normally what we do in the top 10, but I read almost 150 books last year, and 28 of them were 5 stars. So it was very, very hard to narrow it down to just 10. So I'm giving you my top 20. I know this video is very late, but at least it's up. At least we are actually doing it. I did not do it last year, but I'm actually doing it this year, and I'm so excited to be talking to you about these books. I'm going to try not to say too much just because I don't want to be here for forever. I do have work to get to. So I don't want to be filming here for like 2 hours, because I could go on for hours about these books because I love them so much. Why am I clapping? For emphasis. So my number 20 is Beneath the Moon by Yoshio Shitani. I really love this book. It's very like a simple book, but the illustrations in it are absolutely incredible. They're gorgeous. I would show it to you, but I didn't feel like grabbing all these books and ruining my bookshelves just to show them to you. But this front cover shows you the kind of like visual art that you are getting within this book. It is stunning. But this book is just basically like one-page shortened stories of fairy tales and fables from all around the world. And it was really interesting to read. I kind of liked reading one a night kind of a thing as like a bedtime story. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Some I recognized, some I didn't, and I highly recommend. Number 19, I have the Pillow Thoughts series by Courtney Peppernell. This is a poetry series. There's 4 books, and I read all 4 books this year. I gave 3 of them 5 stars. One was a 4-star. But I don't know what it is about her poetry. It just really connects with me. And I cried a couple times actually reading the poetry, because I was like reading it and I was like, oh my god, she just looked into my soul and like put my soul into words, and I didn't realize that this is what my soul was saying, but now I know. And it was just, I feel very strongly for these poetry books. It is more modern poetry, which is typically what I like to read. So if modern poetry isn't your thing, this might not be for you, but I really, really enjoyed them. For number 18, I have Unchosen by Catherine Blair. This was one of the very first books that I read in the year. I read this in January, and I was shocked by how much I loved it. I honestly thought I was gonna give it like 4 stars, but as I kept reading it, I loved it more and more and more. And I had to give it 5 stars. I read this book in 2 days, which it's very rare for me to read a book this size in 2 days. But I was hooked. I was hooked, and you could not rip that book out of my hands. This is a young adult fantasy about, wow, sorry, it's been since January since I've read it, so I actually can't remember a whole lot. I just remember my feelings for it. It's just love. Aggressive love, apparently. So this is a young adult fantasy that follows, I forget the characters' names, but we follow our main girl. She is not the chosen one, but her sister is the chosen one. And she has another sister who's kind of like the leader of this apocalyptic world where I think there's now people, they're not zombies, they're called something else, but they're kind of in a way like zombies, like a virus has taken over and they either infect other people or kill other people, and it makes them very aggressive. But our main girl, those are her sisters, and she is just like nothing special. She ends up getting kidnapped and pretending she is the chosen one to kind of help protect her sister. But now she's kind of like going on this whole adventure, pretending to be the chosen one, and people are looking to her now to kind of help save them. And there's a lot of twists and turns, and there's a really great guy named Seth who has become a new fictional boyfriend of mine, and yeah, I really love this book. Number 17, I have Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. It is the biggest book that I read last year. It honestly took me over a year to read it. I started reading it in 2020 and then I finished it in 2021. It's a big book. It was a big undertaking, but I was happy and excited to read it. I gave it 5 stars. It is the finale to the Dark Artifices series. I think I'm right. Which, if you don't know, you obviously are new here, but the Dark Artifices series takes place within the Shadowhunter world. There are many series within the Shadowhunter world. I am slowly getting through it. I still haven't even started the new series, and the finale of that one comes out this year. We're getting there. They're big books, so they're very intimidating, but I will read them because I absolutely love this world where we have Shadowhunters who are people who are like descendant from angels and they kill demons. But we also have vampires, we have werewolves, we have fairies, we have like all different types of paranormal beings. And this was just a great conclusion to this epic series. And I don't really have a lot to say about it because it is a finale and it is part of a huge expansive world. And I feel like anything I say will be a spoiler, but I just absolutely love this. I think for this series, it's still not my favorite series within the world, but it's my second favorite series within the world that I've read so far. For number 16, I have The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Danan. I read her book, The Roommate, last year, I think, and I loved it. I gave that one 5 stars, and so I had to obviously read The Intimacy Experiment, which I have also given 5 stars. It's an adult romance with some steamy sex scenes. In this one, we follow an ex-porn star who is now trying to like find a new career in educating the world about intimacy. A little bit of sex as well, but like mainly intimacy. And she also kind of is a co-owner of a company that teaches people how to have sex well. Just go with it. And it's about her romance with a rabbi who is also a new book boyfriend. Like, I loved him. But basically the rabbi hires her to give these seminars about intimacy at his synagogue. And in the process, they have their own little intimacy experiment, and it goes very well. And I really, really loved this so much. I love Rosie Danan. I love her writing. I love her storytelling. I love everything. So anytime she writes a book, I'm at this point just automatically going to buy it and read it, and most likely love it. For number 15, I have the Y the Last Man series by Brian K. Vaughan and other people. I'm so sorry. I just remember Brian K. Vaughan because at this point, I think I've read almost every single Brian K. Vaughan graphic novel series. I love Brian K. Vaughan. I love his writing and his storytelling, just like Rosie Danan, but he does a lot of like sci-fi fantasy graphic novel stuff. This, I think, is my favorite of his. I know, this one beats Saga. I just absolutely love Y the Last Man. And I was so excited when I found out it was turned into a TV show this year, and the TV show is fantastic, and it hasn't been picked up for a second season, and I'm just like baffled, I'm shocked, I am upset, and I'm angry because it was a fantastic show. But in this series, we follow Yorick, who is the last man alive on Earth because one day all of the men just dropped down dead for some reason, and we're trying to figure out what that reason is, and also why he is the only man plus his pet monkey, why they're the only 2 males left on the planet. So it's just a whole world full of women, and they're great characters, they're great people. Well, some of them are not great people, but it's really interesting, and I just loved it. I loved it. At number 14, I have another adult romance, and that is Well Matched by Jen DeLuca. This is my favorite in the series so far. Also with this series, these are companion books, so you don't have to read them in order. I do think you'll get more out of it if you read it in order, but it's not necessary. But Well Met, I gave 4 stars. Well Played, I gave 2 stars. I really didn't like Well Played, so I was really nervous going into Well Matched. But I gave it 5 stars. I loved this. And this one, we were following April and her romance with Mitch. It made my heart so happy. So we've got the single mom and like the guy we've always seen as a playboy kind of person. And it was, oh my god, it was so good. I honestly don't have words to describe it, which is good because we do need to move along, but like, I love it. I also love this whole series in general, in the fact that like it takes place at a Renaissance fair. And April doesn't like the Renaissance Fair. She is like not really into it. But then by the end, she's warmed up to it and it's great. Number 13, I have The Darkness Outside Us by Elliot Schrafer. This, again, a book I was not expecting to give 5 stars, but a book I thought I was gonna like nonetheless. But I ended up loving it. So this is a young adult sci-fi queer romance following these 2 boys. They are from enemy countries. They have been thrown in space on a mission in a spaceship, and it's just the 2 of them on this spaceship. And they kind of like have to work together. They're trying to like stay in their own separate sections, but like eventually things happen and they have to kind of work together. And that's, I think, all I'm gonna say about it, just because anything else I say I feel like could be a spoiler. But there are so many twists and turns that I did not see coming. The amount of times I gasped reading this book and was just like, what? I was a little bit confused a few times here and there, but like eventually I understood and I was like, things clicked and things make sense. And it blew my mind. And the ending, I was like so worried for the ending, to be honest, because once I figured out like what was going on, what was happening, I was like, how is this author going to like do the ending? How? And he did the ending in, to me, a way that I thought was believable, understandable, and I was like, got it, makes sense, I love this. If you like sci-fi romances, this one's great. Okay, for number 12, I have A River in Darkness by Masaji Ishikawa. This is a nonfiction that honestly broke me. And the fact that I thought it was gonna have a happy ending, and the ending was just like even sadder than the beginning was. Like, I cried at the end of this book. I really felt for our main character. So this is Masaji Ishikawa's story about his life as a child, about him and his family moving to North Korea, his time in North Korea, and then eventually his escape from North Korea. And it was tough to read. It is a short book, but like, it took me a couple days to read because it was just so hard and heartbreaking, but yet so like something that was like super interesting, and I couldn't stop reading at the same time. Like I wanted to know what happened next. This, I think, is like my only nonfiction on this list. So the fact that like I read a good amount of nonfiction, but I didn't really like them, but this one was just like, oh my god, it was absolutely incredible. Please read this book. At number 11, I have Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I was like so worried that I wasn't gonna like it because there was too much hype surrounding it, but like, it deserves the hype. I understand why it is so hyped. So with this one, our main character is a transgender male in a Latinx family full of brujas and brujos, which means they can basically talk to the dead. They can see ghosts and talk to them and help them move on to wherever they're supposed to go, whatever it's called, but they help them in their afterlife. And our main character wants to be a brujo, but the family still doesn't see him in that way. And so to prove himself of being a brujo, he tries to summon a ghost that he can then help move on to the afterlife, or the wherever they're supposed to go. And the ghost that he ends up summoning is like this guy who went missing a while back, like a few days ago, and he's got to try and find out like how he went missing, what happened to him, like all this stuff. But in the meantime, they kind of form this friendship and this little slight romance. And it's great. I truly, truly loved this story, and I loved this writing. I have read Aiden Thomas's other book, which I know didn't do as well, but I still really loved that one as well. And I just love his writing. I love his storytelling, and I will continue to read his books. For number 10, I'm so sad that this one is actually so low on the list because I loved it so much. But at number 10, I have The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This adult romance made my heart explode. Now, I will say, when I read this, I had no idea this was a Kylo and Rey fanfic. And to be honest, I don't see it. Like, I guess I could see it on the cover because the characters look like that. But in the sense of, like, I don't know. I just see it as, like, two separate characters. One's grumpy, one's sunshine. And they have this, like, fake dating plot that then turns into real romance. But I also loved the Me Too aspect of the story. That was really interesting, and it was a powerful moment in the book as well. And the smut was great, and I just absolutely loved these characters, and I loved their relationship that they ended up forming. This was another book that I read within 2 days because I could not physically put it down. Also love that we're getting women in STEM. I cannot do STEM. Those were my worst subjects in school, but like, I love when I see it. Can I do it? No. I love when I see it though. Number 9, I have Who the F Are You by Huda Fahmy. I was so surprised that I really enjoyed this. I mean, I knew I was gonna like it and enjoy it, but again, didn't expect to absolutely love it. So this is a graphic novel, and we're following, I honestly feel like it's not classified as nonfiction, but it feels like nonfiction because I feel like this stuff kind of happened to Huda when she was growing up, but it's her growing up as a Muslim and, you know, the things that kids do and say, and also her trying to, like, find herself, and it's just a great coming of age story, and I really enjoyed it, so that's all I gotta say. And number 8, I have The Heart Principle. I know a lot of people didn't like this one, and this is like their least favorite in the series, but this is my favorite in the series. I gave the first one 4 stars, the second one 3 stars. This one I loved, and I think the reason a lot of people didn't like this book was because there was not enough romance, because this is an adult romance. It, like, the beginning was romance, but then, like, the second half was more about, like, emotional and family stuff, but that was why I liked it and loved it, because that means to me that these two characters got such a deeper connection than the other characters in the other books, because theirs was built off of like more emotion rather than like attraction, because like our two main characters really went through a lot. You have Kwan, oh my god, I remembered a name. You have Kwan, who just recently went through fighting cancer and defeating cancer, and in the process had to lose some manly stuff. So he's feeling very self-conscious about that. And then our main girl character, whose name I can't remember, just found out that she is autistic, and her family just doesn't believe it and keeps putting pressure and pressure and pressure and pressure on her, and she is like going to crack at the pressure with how much they're putting on her. I absolutely loved this romance and this story and these characters. I think it was great. And number 7, I have Fierce Fairy Tales by Nikita Gill. This is poetry based off of fairy tales, but all about feminism. And each poem is written from the perspective of a certain character from a fairy tale. It can literally be any character. The ones that I'm remembering specifically are from like Cinderella. So we have a poem from the point of view of the stepmother, a point of view from the stepsisters. It's mainly focusing on the women characters of these stories. And it really changed my perspective on a lot of the characters. And it also just like really resonated with me. I would be reading it and be like, wait, oh my god, yes, that is so true. I feel that way. And I also loved her writing style. I cannot explain it, but like, it was fantastic. So I am so excited to read more from Nikita Gill. And number 6, I have Malice by Heather Walter. Another book I did not expect to love this much. I remember as soon as I finished reading it, I was like, this is in my top 10 for the year. I know it. It's in my top 10. And guess what? It's still here. So this is the first in a duology. An adult fantasy duology that's based off of the Sleeping Beauty fairy tale, but we are following Alice, who is supposed to be like our Maleficent character. She deals in curses. That's like kind of what she sells to people, but also she is seen as in the town as like the girl who does dark magic. She's evil, like all the, like no one really likes her, but yet they still go to her when they need her, which is just like super annoying. But it's part of the story, it's part of her character development. It's almost kind of like a villain origin story, and I absolutely loved it, seeing it from her perspective. And then we also have another part of the story where she and Princess Aurora are falling in love. And with the way this one ended, I will say I went into this book not knowing it was a duology and there was going to be a second book. So the way it ended, I was like, what? And then I looked up and I was like, oh, it does have a second book. Thank God. Because the way it ended was just the cliffhanger. The cliffhanger was one of the best cliffhangers I've like ever read. I'm so excited for the second book. I've already pre-ordered it. As soon as it gets in my hands, I am reading it. And number 5, I have XOXO by Axio. Another book I didn't plan to love as much as I did. So this is a young adult K-pop romance book, and it is just so cute and stinking adorable. I loved it. But we have a normal girl from America and a K-pop star falling in love. What more do you need? It was great. It was fantastic. And the way I like swooned and squealed reading this book, I can't. It warmed my heart so much. And like even every now and then, like to this day, I will just randomly think about it and just smile. Like it's just one of those books that makes me so happy. And I cannot wait for Axio's new book coming out this year. Another one I've already pre-ordered. And I'm gonna read as soon as it comes in my hands. Number 4, I have Helium by Rudy Francisco. This punched me in the heart and in my stomach and in my gut. Like it punched me with the emotions, and I liked it. But this is a poetry collection about racism. Just wow. Just wow. I mean, I honestly have no other words. It was incredible. Number 3, I have the Heartstopper series, more specifically books 1, 2, and 3, because I did not read volume 4 in 2021. I have read it this year. I have it right here. I read it in 2022. It's the first book I read in January. But this series, the cutest freaking romance I think I've ever read. The cutest, and the one that like makes me swoon the most. And for the longest time I didn't think I was going to like it, but then I was like, okay, everyone seems to love it, let me just give it a chance. As soon as I read the first book, I immediately went out and bought the second and the third. This is like a super cute gay romance that also involves rugby, which I love. We've also got some like health issues that I don't want to get too specific about in case people haven't read it, and I don't want to spoil it because it doesn't really show up in the first book. It shows up more in like the third one. But it has, oh, it's just the cutest, most adorable thing. I love their romance. I don't have anything else to say. Number 2, we're so close. Number 2, we have The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. People either love this book or they hate it. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. This was a book that was recommended to me by a friend of mine, and so I actually have it in a reading vlog if you want more of my thoughts on it. It's a little tough. It was tough to read in the beginning just because I really connected with the character. But I do want to just say that there are trigger warnings for suicide and depression, because I wish someone had told me that before going into the book. I went in blind, and like within maybe like 40, 30 pages, I had to set it down, and I was like, I need to get into the right mindset for this. I highlighted the crap out of this book. There were just so many like nuggets of wisdom and things that I really needed to hear at that time. It was definitely one of those moments where it was like, I read this book at the right time for me. The thing that like the criticism that people have for this book is the reason I love the book, and that's the fact that like it's a fiction story, but it also feels like a self-help book, and I loved that. I needed that. But with this book, we're following our main character. She is really depressed. She commits suicide, but in that like in-between state of like not dead but also not alive, she finds herself in a place called the Midnight Library, where each book is a choice that she had to make, but if she had made the other choice. So she keeps living all these other lives that she would have lived if she had made different choices in her life. And she's trying to find like the one that's the best, the one that she likes the most. And it's just it was really sad, but also like really poignant, and like I loved this book. Absolutely loved it. And then number one, I realized I've been doing a lot of clapping. I've just been so excited about these books, but number one, are we ready? It was so tough picking a number one, but my number one is Beach Read by Emily Henry. Another adult romance that I read within 2 days because you could not physically grab this book from my hands. I have nothing to say, honestly, about this. I just loved it, and I think Emily Henry is a fantastic romance writer. So this is an adult romance following, again, two people whose names I don't remember, but one is like a literary fiction writer. The other is, I believe, like she's a romance writer, and they not meet, but they run into each other. But they end up being like neighbors while she's like on vacation at her father's like vacation house, I guess. And they're enemies, they're rivals from college, and so they decide to switch genres. So he's gonna write a romance, she's gonna write a literary fiction, to kind of like prove that like, oh, writing your genre is so easy. But in the process they have a romance. But the thing is, that's what I was expecting from the book, and it ended up being so much more and like a lot deeper than that. We go into like their mental state and the things that have happened personally in their lives that are like really tough, and I cried a couple times. Like, this book was just fantastic. And those are my top 20 books for the year 2021 that I read. I'm so happy to finally share this with you. Took a while for me to like, A, come up with this list, and B, film it. But I really want to know what your guys' favorite books are from last year. Do you have any recommendations for me? I hope you got some recommendations from me, because I want other people to like love these books as much as I do. I also have a top 10 for the movies that I watched in 2021. So if you want to watch that, I'll put a link to that down below. But other than that, I will see you guys later with more videos. Bye!